What's up, Holloway Squad? Welcome back for another episode of the Let Me Holla at You podcast, where we talk about real life, real love, with real stories. I hope you guys had a blessed 2 weeks. We missed y'all, but we're glad that you're back here with us again, and we hope that you feel welcome. But, I ain't gonna waste too much time. I know I'm kicking it with my family, but let me holla at you.
Alright, y'all, as per usual, we're starting off with a story for this episode, and we will react to it. This is going to go right kind of into our theme, or the episode kind of theme for the day. And without further ado, let's get into it. This one is from Reddit. Someone actually sent me this. It was really good, so we're going to obviously talk about it. This is from the relationship advice column on Reddit.
All right.
This person's story is titled, "Our date went really well, but she, 31 female, asked me, 34 male, to pay for her babysitter after. I haven't been on a date for a long time and need some advice." So, hi, I'm 34-year-old male, and I just had my first date after a divorce. I met this girl, 31, at my friend's party, and we really clicked. After the party, I texted her, and we have been texting for about 3 weeks. I asked her out a couple times, but she always told me another time because she had to take care of her 2 kids or had to be at work. Last night we have been texting and decided to finally go on a date today. I picked her up, we went to have a dinner at a nice Greek place, and then we went to a bar to have a few drinks. The bar was very close to her place, so I walked her home. She gave me a kiss and we said goodbye. The date went really well. On my way home, she texted me to let her know when I'm home, so I did. We have been texting again and setting up another date, but then she asked me if I could send her 100 euros for her babysitter this evening. I knew she is a single mom and the dad is absent, but since I paid for the whole date, I think paying for a babysitter as well is a bit over the top. I also have a daughter from my marriage, and I paid my nephew to take care of her for the night. I know that if I'm going to pursue this girl, her kids will be a part of my life, and I have no issue with that. Most people my age, including myself, have kids. The issue is, I don't know how to feel about her asking for money after a first date. There was no prior agreement, and she didn't mention any babysitter. I was married for 8 years, and this was my first date after a long time, so maybe it's normal, and I'm just overthinking this. Is this normal? What would you do in this situation?
Bounce. Gotta go.
He just straight up said, bounce.
I'm out of there. Because, first of all, it's only been one date. Although it went really well, we've been communicating. I feel like I don't know, it don't sit right with me to ask me for money for your babysitter. And I feel like, if anything, you had your children before you met me. So I'm thinking, if you really actually were genuine about getting to know me and wanted to be, you'd want to show that you could handle that on your own and you were taking care of business. You know what I mean? Regardless of that, I just feel like, it sounds a little trickish to me.
No, yeah, I actually agree. There's actually a couple comments on here, and the key word that multiple people have been using is tacky. That's very tacky. And I actually agree with that so much, because I'm like, first and foremost, if you decide to have a kid, or if it's unexpected and you still obviously go through with having a kid, that is a decision that you made. And so at that point, it is not on anybody else to raise your kid, take care of your kid, give you, alone time, whatever. So when you get a babysitter because you want that time away, you knew about this ahead of time. You know what I'm saying? If you want to go on a date and obviously you need someone to watch your kid, that's on you to get a babysitter. It's not his kid. You know what I'm saying? He paid for his own babysitter for his own kid.
Right.
And even if he didn't have a kid, it's not his kid. You know what I'm saying? And even when you guys get together, yes, he could be a father figure eventually if they're down the road or something, and they get married and whatever, and they, blend families. And she could be another mother figure for her, for his daughter or something, depending on obviously the situation. But those are still, like, that's not your kid. Like,
right.
You know what I'm saying? And even in mixed families, like, there are boundaries, and it takes a while. And I think you could actually speak on this. Like, it takes a while for a kid to just, you know, like, they might get to that point where they're like, okay, this is, you know, I'm cool calling you dad. But, like, you don't just come in and you're like, I'm dad. So it's like, why would you think just going after a date that this guy's going to come in and pay for babysitting when it's not his kid? It's literally a date. You're not even a family. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's weird to me. And again, he paid for the whole entire date.
Right. And I'd say, too, my only other thing that I could say is, like, if we weren't there for the prior conversation, if he's one of those guys that's always like, I'll do anything for you. If you ever need anything, just let me know, whatever.
One date.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, you know, some guys, they overdo it.
I don't think he would have. Because he said there was no prior conversation.
Oh, true.
So if there was no prior conversation.
Yeah, no, I'm a guy. Yep, trickish.
Yeah.
Ain't cool with me.
So, bounce.
Yeah. I don't even know how I would get out of that, though. It'd be kind of awkward. Like, I'd probably have to be like, yeah, I probably just have to ghost. I don't even know what do you say?
How do you get out of it?
Yeah, how do you get out of that?
One of the best ways, especially since he has a kid, that he could be like, you know, I did, or like even just kind of, I mean, they're 30-something years old and they're parents. So like you could kind of go the budget route of like, oh, well, I just kind of budgeted for our date and I had to pay my own babysitter for my own kid. So,
wait, hold on.
I can't send that to you
I missed
right now.
It. This was in the same night?
What?
So this was after the date when she
hit him up, yeah. They were on the, yeah. I think he was still on his way home.
No, yeah, that ain't, I missed that, my fault.
Yeah, so on the way home, she texted him to let her know when he was home, so he did. And then...
Because I'm thinking when he said they continued to text, that was like a few days.
Yeah, it says, we have been texting again and setting up another date, but then she asked me if I could send her 100 euros for the babysitter this evening. So maybe it has been a couple days,
okay.
But even if it has, it doesn't matter. Like, I would just say, like, you know, I budgeted for whatever. Like, I feel like that's, like, a nice way to get out of it. And then just, like, throw in there, you know, I had to pay my babysitter as well. Kind of like... Yeah, no, pay for your own.
Like she must be very like condescending. Not really condescending, but she must be very conceited because she's like, oh well, you pay for me to eat, and my time was so glorious, and I graced you with my presence that you can pay for the babysitter that had to watch my kid tonight for me to go out on a date with you. You know, like that just seems very like.
Agree.
Nah, FDB. All right.
And we can go ahead and bounce to the next part of our episode at this point. All right, y'all. So, jumping right into our episode now, or should I say bouncing right on in. We are talking about life lessons today, specifically regarding people. We're going to be touching on friendships, relationships, jobs, and maybe whatever falls in between that.
Yes.
So those are kind of our three major key points we wanted to touch on. We have a lot of people around us. We have our own personal experiences as well lately that I feel like have really kind of hit home. And so I feel like it was just a really good time that we kind of did this one. Because a lot of people right now, I feel like that we know, and again, us too, are kind of experiencing some change or have had experiences lately with different relationships regarding in different areas of our life.
Yeah.
That being said, I always touch on jobs. I feel like people don't think of it enough when it comes to their mental health and their relationships with people. This also includes the job that you're at more than you're at home, because most people work full time.
Yeah.
And so when you work full time, if you're depending on the people that you're around, that can really affect you in the long run. And so I've touched on toxic jobs before. I've had them, okay? I've had only, out of all the jobs I've ever had in my adult life, I have only had one job that I believe was not a toxic environment. Mm-hmm. That's concerning, in all fairness. And I feel like the biggest kind of thing that I've gotten from them is that your management is, actually, hold on, quotation here, right? Bad management is what makes people leave, not the job. The job itself will not make people leave. People can learn a job, they can learn a skill, whatever, but bad management, 10 times out of 10, will make people leave and out the door. And I feel like as someone who was a manager, you know what I'm saying? I feel like it's like your responsibility to even have your own self-growth professionally, but also on a personal level to have some empathy for others and to understand what their needs are. So that way, as a manager, you can be their best supporter in this environment.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of managers don't do that because they don't want to be wrong. Like, they just want to feel like they can't do any wrong. And if they show any sign of weakness, or God forbid they did something wrong or said something wrong, it's like, well, they're not a good manager. And it's like, no, that's actually not the case. You're actually becoming a worse manager because you can't own up to the fact that you might have done something wrong or you could do better. You know what I'm saying? And it's like anyone who kisses your ass and tells you that you're doing a great job when you obviously have a lot of cracks in there and people are like in a nice way telling you you're not doing your job, like that should tell you something. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, listen to your employees. And so that being said, I will say is like one of the biggest life lessons regarding people is like when it comes to jobs, I think people need to have a more, and I hate to say it like this, but a more shallow relationship. Like, if you keep that relationship very professional and you don't bring it outside of work and you have that kind of almost shallow, like, you know, what I talk about here is very much work related and, you know, maybe, hey, I went to the farmer's market. It was great on the weekend. Thanks for asking. But like, you don't go into it too much. You're going to save yourself a lot of pain. I also personally have experience of coworkers who said one thing or, you know, and did the other, or people, you know, they'll show you one side of themselves, but they will turn on you the moment that they can, or twist your words or twist your actions in one way or another to step over you. It's happened to me. And I literally have had evidence of like, no, that wasn't me, but they tried to say I was doing something I wasn't. You know what I mean? Like, but that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, if it works out for you that you get personal relationships from a job that are really great, you know, I'm great, I'm happy for you. But I also feel like that also creates a lot of problems at work is when there's too many personal relationships and people know too much about each other, especially kind of like in that, you know, small town, small job, boutique kind of environment. Depending on like obviously what it is, it's like a lot of boundaries can get loosened and that can become a problem in a professional workplace.
Yeah.
So I'll hop off my job soapbox, but my biggest like life lesson specifically about jobs, and I always like try to bring this in, is like I would recommend having a more shallow approach in terms of don't show them exactly who you are all the way, unless it's obviously about your job. Like, keep it very professional, do your job well. You know, I'm not saying be mean to people or be rude, you know, talk to people, but I would keep parts of yourself separate, and that's just to literally save you and keep your work and your job, like your work-life balance, separate and balanced. Because a lot of people mix the two, and then that's where it becomes toxic.
Yep.
But yeah, that's all I got on jobs.
Yeah. My take on jobs, one thing that I've learned is, you know, trust your gut. You know when it's time for you to leave. You know when a chapter has closed. You know when you aren't being respected, when you aren't being appreciated. And you know when you could be doing better elsewhere. I feel like there's a lot of cases where I worked at a job for too long, under certain circumstances and under certain, you know, issues and situations without going into detail and things. You know, I am a provider by trade, so there's been situations in my life where I've had to suck it up and deal with some things in jobs and workplaces just for the fact that I just need to make money and get paid. But at the end of the day, like, you're strong. You got that job. You're bound to get another one. They are out there. You can find them. And, of course, don't leave a job until you got another one lined up.
Right.
That's
Unless you got a really
good lesson to know. And there's a lot of people out there that don't believe that. They'll leave a job and they'll thug it out and then find the situation. You know yourself, so you know how much thug you got in you. So just, you know, play heed to that. But I think, like, it's okay to leave. Like, it's okay to, if something's not for you. It's okay if you're not happy doing something. It's okay if there's a job that's making you be the person that you know you aren't. And it's okay to say, hey, I choose me over this job, you know. And get there sooner rather than later so that you can get on that job hunt. Because, again, don't leave a job. Yeah. This is my key point. until you have another job. And I think another key point, just to go over into another topic, without getting into jobs too much, is trust yourself. I feel like there's a lot of cases in life where I second guessed myself, or I was like, I can't do that, and I switched up and did something else, or it's not gonna happen for me. And I think now, like on the back half, not on the back half of life, but I'm on the back half of like the young years, I guess, whatever. Even though 30's a new 20.
He's not 30 yet, though.
Yes, that's not what I was saying. Don't make me older.
Anyway.
I look 18. Y'all already know. I know y'all ain't. I know y'all ain't tripping. I love y'all. But I think there's a lot of cases where I would have probably been further along in a field or in a direction had I stuck with it and just trust myself, trust my gut, trust what I'm a religious person. I do believe in Lord Savior Jesus Christ. So trusting what God is innately telling you and what you feel around doing what you love to do. And just go for it. Trust yourself. Trust that everything is going to happen the way that it needs to. Of course, as long as you have hard work, dedication, and you're taking the necessary steps toward that, you can be successful. So don't second guess yourself. Don't question if you can do it. Don't have thoughts of doubt in your mind of, oh, I messed that up, or oh, it doesn't sound as good as that person, so I might as well not even. No, go for it. Do that thing. Be that guy. You never know. I can guarantee you, everybody who is that guy in their field never imagined that they would be that person until they took that step, and then they were that.
Right.
And they just kept going down that rabbit hole. So that's another big life lesson for me.
Well,
just trust yourself.
And on that route, you kind of got me thinking too, is like something that I have always said, will always say, and I think is great for everyone to hear, is you will keep being thrown the same lesson until you learn it. And the reason I think I sometimes harp on the jobs a little bit is just because I, at such a young age, and I've had this conversation with my parents, like I've shown them texts and emails and obviously nothing that was confidential, just putting that out there. I don't break the law. Anyway, just because my previous positions, doesn't matter. But like nothing that was, yeah. So, but I've shown them these kind of things, and I've, told them conversations that I've had, and it's like, I was like, why me? Like, I feel like a lot of times I get the short end of the stick a lot when it comes to like management specifically, but, or like my bosses or, bosses. And they're like, this is actually kind of crazy that you have to deal with this, especially at a young age. It's like, my dad even said, he's like, I've had to deal with maybe all of that over like my lifetime of work. And he's like, and you've barely been in the workforce for this little bit of itty bit of time. I mean, compared to like what I will be, you know what I'm saying? Like for majority of your life, he's like, that's a lot that you've had to deal with at such a young age. And he's like, I'm proud of you for going through it well. But anyway, what I'm getting at though is like, I think sometimes I harp on that, or even going into other relationships that was like, I hadn't learned my lesson yet. So I kept getting burned because I was trying to be a trusting person, or I was trying to, make work better because I was like, if we like the people we work with, it makes our day go by better, right? Well, that's not always the case. And honestly, it comes to the point of like, I've learned so much through being burned so much that it's like, okay, I finally learned my lesson, you know what I mean?
Right.
But after learning my lesson, things have gotten better. Like, it's easier for me to leave work at work and come home and have home, you know what I mean? And that's a big thing specifically for me personally, is like, I need to have that separation. And that's something I, again, had to learn about myself. But that being said, I think it goes into relationships. This one's going to touch on friendship and, like romantic relationships as well. I just had, something that came into my head. I have a friend, and they had previously, like their last relationship that they had gotten out of, they were basically holding on to something that wasn't going to happen. Like, they were holding on to an idea of what the relationship could have been or could be in the future, but not the reality of what it actually was. So that being said, they kept putting up with things that they shouldn't have had to put up with, but they allowed it to keep happening in hopes of the future kind of thing. They were falling in love with a future more than a present. Then they broke up, not with that person anymore. Come though now in the present, they just had a friendship that recently ended. And before I go into this, friendships are not always for a lifetime. Some are for a season, and some are for a reason, and some are for a lifetime to get you through the seasons and the reasons, okay? So that being said though, they had a friendship. We thought it was a very good friendship, but unfortunately, a lot of things happened in between, or kind of like at the very end, and they were accused of lying about things that they didn't lie about. So obviously there was no trust in that friendship on that person's side. And they even offered, which they shouldn't have had to do, but even offered to show them evidence of how they weren't lying about whatever they were accusing them of. Didn't want to see the evidence. So at this point, you're just like, you don't want to even know that you're wrong. You know what I mean? Like, and then the friendship had ended, but that person was, again, thinking of rekindling that relationship with that friend because, they had a lot of great times. Mm-hmm. And so that's, again, a reoccurring theme, though, that I kind of realized just off of, because it's, a fresh situation, and I'm going to talk to this friend, but it's like, that's the same kind of situation that happened with the ex, right? Mm-hmm. One was romantic and one was just platonic as like just a friend. However, they were burned in both for the same reason. Yep. And, that's a great quality that they have, is that they were forgiving, and they wanted to try and move on. But that forgiveness is, you can forgive, but not grant access. Let's put that out there. You can forgive someone, but it doesn't mean that you need to keep them close. You can still keep your distance. And that's for your own health, safety, growth, lesson learned. Like, yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if you're falling in love with something that was a past or something of the future, but not with the patterns that are being shown in the present, that's going to burn you. You know what I'm saying? The everything was there. It was toxic. They did not care. They cut you off. They accused you of lying. You know what I'm saying? Like, these things happen, but you had hopes for the future, but not paying attention to the patterns at present. Yeah. So, but again, though, just an example of, like, if you don't learn your lesson, you're going to keep getting that lesson until you learn it. And if you forget it, it's going to come right back to bite you in the ass. Like, I hate to say that, but that's how life works, So
I think the biggest thing I've learned is, if you're talking about romantic relationships, I'd say in between those, I know when I was very young, I was very much wanting to be in a relationship all the time, wanting to know I had somebody that was with me, that we were together. And I know it's easy sometimes to end a relationship and then, have somebody else that you meet early on and then you kind of hit it off. But at the same time, like, pace yourself. You need to take that time and sit and evaluate that situation, what you just went through, what you experienced, whether you were the cause or on the receiving end or what happened, or if it was mutual. You need to sit down and kind of lick your wounds a little bit before you go into your next situation, because inevitably what you're doing is you're carrying dirt from one relationship to the next relationship to the next relationship to the next relationship. And by the time you meet that fifth person, who could be the person you're meant to be with, you have so much dirt that you're carrying with you that it's just too heavy for them to hold.
Right.
So you kind of have to be wary and just know yourself, but take time. 3 months, 6 months, a year, however much you need to get the clarity that you need before you move on. I think a lot of times people hark on having closure from relationships ending. I think a lot of the time it's not our necessarily need for closure, because a lot of the times things aren't brand new that come up. These are things that were there. You just, for whatever reason, didn't heed to the warning, or didn't take heed to the warning, or didn't look at it for what it was. So I think a lot of times it's just we don't have the clarity. We haven't sat there and thought through it and understood our part in things and the other side's part in things and how we could have moved differently, or things that could have been said, or maybe it was just nothing that could have been done. It just wasn't us. We weren't meant to be. But you need to address those things before going into the next relationship. And that also counts as friendships as well. How can you be a true friend to somebody if you've had a relationship and you and somebody were so close for so much X amount of time and you fell out, but you don't really know the true reasons why? So many cases you hear, like, what happened to you and such hanging out? And it's like, I don't know, we just kind of stopped talking. That shouldn't really be a case. Like, I don't understand. What do you mean, I don't know? Like, y'all just...
Well, I actually want to touch on that, because I'm actually a firm believer that you can want closure, but you have to find closure within yourself. You can't seek it from the person that you want it from. And the reason I say that is because a lot of people harp on, well, I just want to talk with them and get closure. We just need to talk and have closure. Okay, well, why do you need to talk to them? Why don't you sit back, evaluate your actions? Why don't you evaluate their actions? evaluate what you guys were in terms of like what situation you're in, your environment that you were in. Like the closure that you are seeking, you can't seek from somebody else. You have to do that and find that internally, because to be very honest, one, that person may not ever actually tell you the full truth as to why they acted or did what they did, because they could have their own thing going on. You know what I'm saying? So, and on top of that, they could tell you something that they know will hurt you, or that they just want to jab at you for. You know what I mean? Like, you can't seek closure from others, because if you're seeking closure from others, you're seeking acceptance and validation from someone that you don't need to be seeking it from. You need to seek acceptance and validation within yourself. And that kind of goes along with the self-growth as well, and like why in relationships and like there's a lot of insecurities that'll come up, and I think that a lot of that would get solved if you just set boundaries for you. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of that, like the way of like you teach people how you want to be treated. So when you accept things that are not to a certain standard, people know that they can treat you badly, because you're letting them treat you badly. You know what I'm saying? You're teaching them how to treat you. But if you hold yourself to this standard and you don't falter on that, and you hold everyone else around you to that standard, yeah, you might have less people around you because it's a higher standard to meet. But the people who do meet that standard and or rise above it are those people that are going to be there for a freaking lifetime. You know what I'm saying? Like, because you know that they are A1, they're at that standard you need them to be. And because you're holding your standard here, you have the self-respect for yourself that you don't need to seek that acceptance or validation from others. You will internally get it done and figured out yourself.
Even if that closure for you could be, I did everything I could do. I was a great person. I always put my partner first. There's nothing I would change about me. That guy was just an asshole. You saying that out loud and coming to that realization, you've gotten a lot of feedback about yourself in going to the next relationship. The things that you settled for in that last relationship, you won't settle for anymore. You'll notice the signs in the type of guy or the type of person you are talking to the next time, which will make you move differently. You hold yourself now to a different standard. You know what you have to offer a relationship. You know what you have to offer a person. So you're not going to accept less than that from them as well. So that closure can come from many different ways in many different forms. But all in all, it is to get you through it, get you through the lesson so that you learn what you need to learn to go into the next chapter and potentially be successful. Because ultimately, I feel like in our stories, even if you've been dealt a difficult hand, it feels like you were just meant to lose. I feel like everybody's story is a hero's journey. It's just, you got to put the work in. You have to have the faith and keep walking and keep pushing to get to that point. And that could mean something different for totally different people.
Yeah, 100%. But overall, I think those are all of my kind of like little life lessons with people. I think like when it comes to relationships, like I said, honestly, that's really for me just about like you show someone how you want to be treated by letting them do whatever they do. Not if you don't hold them to a standard or set a boundary, like that's on you. And the reason I think I say a lot of I just kind of realized this actually enlightenment moment while we were talking just now, is I feel like everything that I say sometimes is always like, well, what could you have done better? Meaning like reflecting on myself. And sometimes like things do happen just environmentally that go, you know, like you can't control everything, right? But a lot of actions that you can control, obviously your own actions, you can control your own emotions, you can control who you forgive, when you forgive, the closure that you get. Like that's all really an internal thing. And the reason I feel like I feel like that a lot is because I always kind of said like I was a perfectionist in a way, but I think that thinking growing up, like yes, it was great for sports, but now as an adult, it's turned into, instead of like a physical thing where I have to be a perfectionist of my sport or I have to be a perfectionist in school, like has now turned into I need to be a perfectionist of myself. And sorry guys, I'm having a whole therapy session. I really just realized that now has turned, like that perfectionist of myself has turned into me always self-evaluating. And I just realized that everything I've been saying and all of my different like little life lessons that you can learn and things, it's like everything was all very much like, well, how do you heal yourself and how do you get over that? And, you know, you don't seek closure, you need to find closure within yourself. Like, everything's very internal for me.
Yeah.
So I just really realized that. Like, I don't I rarely, that's another thing too, is like, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, you control your own destiny, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's like, I don't know. Shoot, maybe I'm onto something, right?
Maybe so.
But that's all I really have.
One day we'll know.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add?
No, I think I covered everything. As far as I've gotten, like I said, we haven't lived some super long life. So we have a lot more experiences to go that I look forward to. I look forward to learning. I look forward to episode 50 when we're doing a revamp of the life lessons and we're adding to what we've already given because we've learned more. But
well, now we need to write that down. We got to get to episode 50 and do a life lessons revamp.
Like, comment, subscribe. But all in all, trust yourself, love one another, treat people how you want to be treated. I think
all that jazz.
Those principles cover everything that we can do on our end as human beings to try to be better.
I agree.
And I think as long as we're shooting for better in all our relationships, you can't lose.
Yeah, always set boundaries with others. And remember, not everyone is in your life for a lifetime. Sometimes they're there for a season or a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So
can't hit a home run if you never stand up to bat.
Very true. Well, that being said, we're going to go ahead and bounce out of this conversation. I'm sorry, you guys are probably so tired of me saying bounce now. But that being said, thank you guys so much for joining us on our little life lessons episode. We would love to hear from you as usual. So please comment, send DMs, whatever you want. Let us know what life lessons that you liked that maybe we said, or give us your own life lessons that you learned that you'd love for us to share on the next episode. I'd love to do like a little conglomeration of ones that you guys have sent in. So if you guys have any of your own...
Start a whole thread.
Yeah, if you guys have any of your own little tagline moments, go ahead and send them on in. We'd love to share them. And obviously we can keep you anonymous or we can credit you, so we'll shout you out. But anyway, that being said, if you did like this episode, please do us a favor and share, like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, all of that. We do post every other Tuesday at 9 a.m. And then you can also follow us on our socials for any behind the scenes and or extra content or clips from our episodes. We are at letmehollaatyou.podcast.
Boom, boom, boom. If you got an issue with the sound quality or the video quality, the best way to aid us in fixing that is to like, comment, and subscribe so we get them views, and then we can get some bread, and then we can get some more camera and more microphone.
I'm pretty sure.
Logical.
I'm pretty sure we've been okay though.
If you've been following the podcast as long, you know we give A1 advice. I say that is A1 advice.
There you go. There you go.
And like my students tell me to say all the time after I say something in band class, clock it.
With that being said, we'll see you next time on
Let Me Holla at You.